580 Sports Talk on a hump day afternoon in the capital city. Great to be with you on this Wednesday. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski. It's a two-man game for the next 2.5 hours. Spencer Dupuis is off. We'll be back tomorrow. We are thrilled you are joining us for this edition of 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream, which you can find on Facebook at our page WIBW News, and on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Again, we are with you in 2.5 hours today. We will once again pass the baton at 5:30 to the Royals Baseball Network for the rubber game of the three-game series between the Royals and the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Cole Reagans, the All-Star, on the mound for KC. Luis Gil on the mound for the New York Yankees.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was keeping track of, stuff going on around baseball all year, but I had never actually watched a game in which Luis Gil was pitching. So I've been calling him Gil all year. And like he was named for, or like Gil Mesh was named for him or something. Thankfully, I didn't say that out loud to anybody, but I really felt dumb when I found out that he has a more ethnic pronunciation of his name than my Americanization of it.
Err on the side of the soft G, the G as H, when it is someone from Latin America, as Luis Gil is. He is from the Dominican Republic, and it is indeed Luis Gil who will start. Second start coming off the Luis Gil.
Boo!
Yeah, not my best work. He is on the mound tonight, the right-hander, against the lefty Cole Reagans. Royals going for a series win and trying to finish the 20-game gauntlet at 500. They can do that with a win tonight. Not only win the series against the Yankees, but get through that daunting 20-game stretch that we talked about that began with the 3-game homestand against Philadelphia with an even 500 record. And if they can accomplish that with a 7-game losing streak in the middle of it, that will be a truly remarkable feat by this Royals team. It would also tonight, if the Royals win, ensure that they could finish no worse than 500, which is frankly miraculous given where we were with this team the last handful of years. A 56-win team last year. They're 1 win away from 81. Brendan, you are 30 years old, correct?
That is correct.
Do you know how many 80-win seasons you've been alive for the Kansas City Royals?
Are we including this one?
Yes, we are including this one.
4?
The answer is 7.
Oh, okay, I was going to adjust that to 6. But
the answer is 7.
What's the earliest of the group?
The earliest would have been 2003.
Oh, shoot. So I missed one since then.
Yeah, so 03, 83, and 79. 13, 86, and 76.
That's the one I missed.
14, 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
And now 2024. The Royals with 80-plus wins. That is locked in after last night's 5-0 victory. We'll talk plenty of Royals baseball. Seth Lugo maybe reinserting himself back in the Cy Young discussion. Chris Bubich proving once again that he is this team's second-best reliever. And Salvador Perez having something close to a career year at the age of 34. What a wonder he is. We'll talk plenty of Royals baseball to get things going here on 580 Sports Talk. We've also got lots of K-State football to talk on today's show. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us at the bottom of this hour. Typically, Fitz is with us at 4:35. Today, he'll join us at 3:35. Bit of a scheduling conflict, so we had to move him up, but that's no problem. We'll have Fitz on, talk about that win at Tulane, and preview the big game Friday night. National TV audience for the Cats in a non-conference game against a conference opponent taking on the Arizona Wildcats. I got the Wildcats in this one.
Hardy har har.
I'm just full.
Man, you're all over the dad jokes today, huh?
I really am. I'm growing nicely into them. 3 months into actual daddom, starting to grow into them really nicely. So we'll talk to Fitz at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, we will hear my conversation from earlier this week with Damian Ilalio, the junior defensive tackle for the Kansas State Wildcats, the former Manhattan High Indian. Talked to Damian earlier this week about his expanding role on the team and what he likes about this year's defense so far, and also his hidden talent, which I think you'll get a kick out of. Damian Ilalio will join the show at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll also talk some Chiefs today. Start looking ahead to Sunday, the Chiefs and the Bengals. Maybe it's just me, and we'll suss it out with you folks listening and with you, Brendan. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not feeling as juiced for this regular season Chiefs-Bengals meeting as I have for past Chiefs-Bengals meeting. And I don't know if that's a Bengals issue, a Bengals problem, or if that's just how little the regular season means to the Chiefs after the regular season they had last year and what they ended up doing in the playoffs. We'll hash it out a little bit, but we will want to hear from you if you're as fired up for Chiefs-Bengals as you maybe have been in recent years as those two teams prepare to play on Sunday afternoon at Arrowhead Stadium. Plus, all the things you've come to know and love from a Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk, including One Gotta Go, another round of What Is Wrong With You, including an update on, I believe, a monthly finalist from last year. We love when we find updates of our old What Is Wrong With You stories. And we will also have our sports headlines at the top of the 5 o'clock hour before, again, we give way at 5:30 to the Royals. You are invited and encouraged to be a part of the program today. Multiple ways you can do that. You can hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That's 785-272-9429. 785-272-9429 is the Top City Metal Supply text line number. Also, if you happen to be watching the show on video, you can comment live either on Facebook, again, the page is WIBW News, or in the live chat on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk, our YouTube channel. Interact with other listeners, interact with your hosts. We'll have a good time over these next 2.5 hours with you here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's start with those Royals. 5-0 win over the Yankees last night. That was what I was watching last night, and I was on social media as well, and debate was trending last night. And I have to believe it was the debate over who should win the American League Cy Young, because I think Seth Lugo's performance in his last 3 starts in this difficult stretch for the Royals against nothing but first-place teams has shown that he may not win it. And I kind of don't think he's going to. I think the narrative is already solidified around Tarek Skubal, and he might win the pitching triple crown, which is the kind of thing that usually wins you the Cy Young. He leads the American League presently and wins earned run average and strikeouts. But Seth Lugo should be a finalist 100%. And what he has done in his last 3 starts, when we worried going into his start at Houston on August 30th, maybe he's starting to wobble a little bit. It's been a rough August for Seth Lugo. His ERA had jumped over a 6-start stretch, almost a full run from 238 all the way up to 319 after he got knocked around by the Phillies at the K back on August 25th. In 3 starts since, again, against first-place teams in this critical stretch of the season, late August into early September. 7 innings of 1-run ball against Houston with 9 strikeouts to 1 walk. Unfortunately, the Royals didn't win that game, but outstanding start. Then September 4th, he beats Cleveland with 7 innings of 1-run ball, 4 strikeouts to just 1 walk. And then stop me if you've heard this one, 7 innings last night, no runs on just 3 hits, 10 strikeouts, no walks. It has been a masterful 3-start stretch for Seth Lugo. He looks like he's getting a second wind. The Royals have continued to give him the opportunity to take the ball, go deep in the games, and he has been immense in this stretch.
And that comment about the second wind, you should feel vindicated for that, because a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, we had the conversation, you, myself, Spencer, and our former intern Trenton Craxner as well, about is Seth Lugo hitting a wall because he has pitched too much, because he has never thrown this many innings in a season. And the only time he had thrown even close to as many was last year, his previous career high, when he got back to being a full-time starter. And whatever the downturn was, and it's a long season, you make a lot of starts, something can go wrong. Whatever it was, it seems like he has figured that out and he is back in a rhythm. It could be anything. There are so many things that it could have ended up being. But this is, again, backing up the point that the Royals have something that I don't believe anyone else in Major League Baseball has going into the postseason. And that is dominance at the top of their pitching rotation that you just don't really see anywhere in baseball. I'm not trying to say the Royals have 3 to 4 aces, but they've got 3 to 4 guys who in a playoff game you feel great about sending out there, even though Lugo had a little bit of a blip earlier in the year, pitching phenomenally right now, made history. He did something yesterday that no one has ever done ever at Yankee Stadium in the history of playing the New York Yankees at either Yankee Stadium.
Him and Chris Bubic and John Schreiber, it should be noted. This was a team effort. That it was the first time ever that the Yankees had 0 runs and 0 walks and as many as 14 strikeouts. That had never happened to the Yankees at Yankee Stadium before last night.
You are absolutely correct. They are all part of it, but he had the lion's share of it.
Yes.
I'm going to let him take the majority of the credit there. But Cole Reagans has had a few more ups and downs in this back part of the season, but for the most part, he has been great this year. We talked a ton about Michael Wacha yesterday. We know what Brady Singer is offering you. Fifth starter problems. You don't need a fifth starter in the playoffs. You get an off day all the time. You don't need to worry about that. So you're in a really good spot. And to see Lugo, again, I use this word so often these days talking about the Royals, but the resilience that he's been able to show, knowing that he is being counted on more than he has ever been counted on before, not just in terms of eating innings, but performance and performing in these high pressure, important situations. And he has passed all of those tests with flying colors. The stuff is back. He looks as good as he's looked all season, which is really encouraging because at his best, he was the Cy Young favorite in the American League. And you're right. He might not win that because Skubal has had an unbelievable year. He's awesome. I have no problem if Tarik Skubal ends up winning the Cy Young Award, but that's the kind of pitching performance right now and over the balance of the season that we're talking about with Seth Lugo. That is how good he has been. And if you are getting that guy, well, I'm feeling pretty good.
You already kind of patted me on the back a little bit, so I'll accept my flowers as you've given them to me. But the main reason I was at least a little confident that Seth Lugo could bounce back late in the season, even given the increase in his workload, was that it did not seem that the quality of his stuff in terms of velocity and spin, that's where we'll start. It didn't seem like that was the problem. It's not like he was coming out and all of a sudden a fastball that was at 95 was barely getting to 91 or 92, or that his curveball was spinning 3,400 RPM, all of a sudden is only spinning 3,000 RPM. All of those numbers were holding really strong. That told me the arm feels good. That means he's not losing steam on his arm. Sometimes you're just not sharp. Sometimes you go through a 3-4 start stretch where you're not your very best. I think that's what we saw from Seth Lugo. The sharpness is absolutely back. He was using all of his pitches last night, putting them anywhere he wanted to. If he'd gotten the same strike zone that Marcus Stroman got, and I want to be clear, he absolutely did not. Stroman was getting a full 6 inches off the corner of the plate, the outside corner, that Seth Lugo was not getting, flatly.
Who was the ump last night?
I do not know. I do not remember, but
maybe
he
was the conspiracy theorist too.
Very, very possible.
Google Marcus Stroman for more.
Very possible. I'm gonna do the digging and find out if it's a name I recognize. Chad Whitson. Not really familiar with his game.
More like Chad
Whitless.
Never mind.
Whitsec. Anyway, it was not great home plate umpiring last night. And
what else is new?
Didn't seem to matter to Seth Lugo. He was efficient. He was ruthless. He went into the 7th. He went over 100 pitches. He finished the night with a flourish. In that 7th inning, that was the meat of the Yankee order. That was Judge, Wells, Stanton, Chisholm. He got Judge to strike out. Wells hit the first ball hard off of him all night. Then he got Stanton to fly out, struck out Chisholm to end his outing. It was dominant work. The Royals were able to tack on and give him insurance late in the game. They got the Tommy Pham homer to make it 3-0 in the 7th. They got the sac fly from Maikel Garcia, really good at bat from Garcia, to make it 4, or rather to make it 5. I'm sorry, I backed up. It was 4-0 after the Pham home run, 5-0 after the Garcia sac fly. And that made life a lot easier on the bullpen that came in after him and combined Bubic and Schreiber to pitch 2 perfect innings with 4 strikeouts. Speaking of Bubic, I've been on my soapbox about this. Hopefully people are starting to see it now. I feel like they are. I feel like we had, I think it was Joe in the YouTube comments yesterday saying Bubic has to have a big role in the postseason bullpen. He can't believe he's saying it, but it's got to be Bubic. Man, he has been awesome out of the bullpen. 29 strikeouts to 3 walks in 22 and a third innings with only 2 home runs surrendered. He's got an even better strikeouts per 9 out of this bullpen than Lucas Erceg does. Like, we think of Erceg as dominant, nasty, blowing 99 to 100 and the big curveball. And he is nasty. He is all those things. He's got 21 strikeouts and 17 and a third. That's just shy of 11 strikeouts per 9. Bubic is missing more bats than Erceg is. The issue with Bubic, and it's not a small one, given how important the playoffs are and how sometimes the playoffs are scheduled. Can we see him on back-to-back days? We talked about this a little bit yesterday. There's a little understanding I think we have to have, and I don't know actually if Quatrero has addressed this directly. I have not, I must confess, listened to every single one of his pre- and post-game media availabilities, so I don't know if he's spoken to this directly. I feel like I would have heard about this by now, though, if he had. Chris Bubic is coming off of Tommy John surgery, so that's an arm that you want to be careful with. And moving him to the bullpen is kind of part of being careful with an arm. But he's only worked consecutive days one time since being recalled to the major leagues and joining the Royals bullpen. Only one time has he worked back-to-back days. It was August 25th and 26th. It was the Sunday against the Phillies when he came in and had to clean up a mess, and then he pitched the next day against Cleveland in the first game of that doubleheader. But here's the thing that stands out about that. In his outing against the Phillies, he threw just 3 pitches. So Matt Quatrero was comfortable going to him the next day after he threw just 3 pitches. But is he going to be comfortable going to him the day after he throws 15, 20, 25 pitches? Because that's the level, that's the extent to which you're going to need your best relief arms when October rolls around. And if you can only use Chris Bubic 3 out of 5 games in a short series, or 2 out of 3, or 1 out of 3 in a short series, that's a handicap, and that's a problem.
It is. And I am expecting that that's how they will use him in the postseason. I think that he will be a once every other day guy. And is that a handicap? Yes, without question. But I do think that's how they are going to use him. I mean, he didn't pitch until the middle of the season because he was following Tommy John surgery. Like, there's something important to note there, and you're still recovering and trying to make sure long-term he's going to be okay. I understand all of that. That is my assumption because that is largely how the Royals have handled him since he came back. They've been dealing with him with kid gloves. That is my expectation. That being said, I am hopeful that all of this handling with kid gloves is building up to a point where they feel like they can get maybe not 2 of every 3, but what about, like, if you're going to play 7 postseason games, like 5 of every 7, like you maybe need to go like 2 off, 1 off, 2 or something like that. It depends on the situation, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like, maybe not. My instant point of reference, I obviously go to the Cubs in the postseason in 2016, where Aroldis Chapman told Joe Maddon, "You can use me every day." And the front office for the Cubs knew that Aroldis Chapman was not going to return the following season. They knew he was going back to New York, and they knew they had one chance. And Joe Maddon used him and abused him, frankly. And I don't know that he was ever the same pitcher.
That was sort of the postseason for that, though, because remember, Andrew Miller was used in the exact same fashion by Cleveland.
Yes.
Multiple innings.
I think he was the starter even longer than Chapman was the start of his career.
Yes,
and
he was.
He really could be stretched out. And he pitched every game, almost every single game of that postseason, unless it was a blowout. Aroldis Chapman pitched. I don't think you're getting that out of Chris Bubic at any point. But my optimistic hope, is that at least in spots, maybe the plan is we're going to go every other day with him, or he'll be up every other day. But if we use him in game 2 of the wild card series and we need him in game 3, we can do that. That might alter what we can do next round, but we can do that. Or if you get to game 6 and 7 of the divisional series, well, we used him in game 6, but we have to get game 7. We can use him there. That's my hope, that you can at least in a spot go with that, even if that's not the full term plan.
One encouraging thing to note about Bubic's usage pattern, he has been used on 1 day of rest exactly 3 times. One of those was the aforementioned 3-pitch, 2-out outing that he had against Philadelphia in that 11-3 loss back on August 25th. But 2 of his last 3 outings have come with 1 day of rest. He worked September 2nd and then back again September 4th against Cleveland. He worked September 8th against Minnesota and back again last night against New York. Here is what he has done in those 2 outings with a day's rest. 1 inning, 1 hit, no runs, 3 strikeouts, no walks. 1 inning, 2 strikeouts. Pretty good. Shows that he can bounce back on a day's rest. We'll see how that pattern maybe continues, maybe doesn't. Maybe it becomes, we see Bubic multiple innings. Maybe we see him back-to-back days, but you're going to need him to get some important outs because outside of Lucas Erceg, he's the guy right now in that Royals bullpen. One quick point about Salvador Perez, who drove in his 100th run of the season last night. I believe he is only the 3rd catcher ever to be 34 years of age or older and drive in 100 runs in a season. I believe I have that stat right. They showed it on the TV broadcast last night. To be a 34-year-old catcher, and he has caught more than half of the Royals games this season. So it's certainly a lighter catcher workload for him, but he is, for all intents and purposes, the everyday catcher for these Royals.
Yep.
Look, I love a good Hall of Fame debate, and I welcome the opportunity to celebrate Salvador Perez's career 5 years after he retires when he does get on the Hall of Fame ballot. But man, let's not lose sight of what he's doing right now, the way he's rising to the occasion for this team on a good team after being on so many lousy teams over the last few years. After last year, it felt like maybe this is a start of a step backwards for Salvador Perez. Maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see the decline phase begin because Perez was a below average hitter per OPS plus last season, and that was the first time that had been the case since 2018. And he started to wonder, okay, the power was down a little bit, the strikeouts were way up. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for Sal. He's played a lot of baseball, he's caught a lot of games. He has rebounded this year. This is the second best full offensive season of his career, behind only the 48 home run, 121 RBI year he had in 2021. And it's really cool to see him do it in games that matter for a team that matters. And I just can't think of a happier thing to be happening this year. Not just that the Royals are good, but that Salvi's in the center of it with the C on his chest. It just kind of adds something, I think, to what has been a really, really fun ride.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It hasn't just been a cool story. It's been a major part of the Royals being good this year. Like, without Salvador Perez, they're not a playoff team. They're just not. All the things he brings to the table. It's awesome, though. It's super cool for him. It's cool for Royals fans because while he was obviously a hero in the World Series in 2015 and has been a mainstay on this team for a long time, he's also played with a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And to be in a spot where he can be put on a pedestal for a little bit, I think that's really cool. And I'm happy for him. And I'm happy for Royals fans that they get to keep watching this guy.
Christopher points out that the math says that the magic number is 12 for the Royals, but that since the Royals already have a tiebreaker over the Tigers and only have to tie them, magic number is actually Maikel Garcia. Or if you want to go back further than that, Jeremy Guthrie. Or if you want to go back even further than that to the first glory years, Hal McRae. It's 11 for the Kansas City Royals. We'll take a quick break. We got Tim Fitzgerald coming up in just a little bit, but first, a short round of One Gotta Go. That's next here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. One gotta go time on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, you've got one for us today.
All right, one's got to go. I think we might have done this one before, but let's refresh it here. I'm going to give you the theme music to the 4 terrestrial television NFL broadcasters. Amazon Prime, I'm sorry, you're not included here. So Fox, CBS, I can't do theirs well, NBC, and then ABC, ESPN, Monday Night Football. One's got to go. And I'm not talking about Carrie Underwood or
no, you're talking
Chris
about
Stapleton.
Yes, you're
song.
talking about the instrumental.
Yes.
So NBC and Fox are both iconic in their own ways. CBS has really stuck with theirs for a really long time, which is kind of rare for them. It's between them and the Monday. I've never loved the Monday Night Football theme.
Really?
It's just it means football, but I've never loved it as a piece of music. So I'm going to say that one.
Interesting. I'm dumping CBS. I'm out on CBS. Monday. I have this very clear, intense emotional reaction to Hank Williams Jr. did All My Rowdy Friends, and then right into dun 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 dun.
Right.
That speaks to me on a way that the CBS doesn't. I also grew up rooting for an NFC team. My parents rooted for a different NFC team. We watched a lot of Fox games when I was a kid. CBS was the other channel. So that one has a much stronger connection to me. CBS,
We'll take a quick break, and Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com will join us next for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Joining us An hour earlier than usual on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is the great Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Check out Fitz and his outstanding staff's great work at GoPowerCat.com. Become a VIP subscriber today. And Fitz joins us every Wednesday for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, let's jump right into it. K-State wins at Tulane on Saturday. And no, it wasn't convincing, but I got to say, they've played a lot of unconvincing football in September's past and not won games. So just getting out of New Orleans with a win, I think, had to feel good for Kansas State after that one.
I think they would probably agree that they were able to find a way to win. And I kind of like what Chris Kleiman said after the game, that this was a culture win. They just simply refused to lose that game. And maybe they got a break here and there, but boy, they made plays when they had to, including the huge sack that forced a fumble that ended up as a touchdown. I mean, that was just a game-changing play and altered the course of the entire afternoon. So it's good to get that win if you're Kansas State, and now you come home for your last non-conference game, even though it's a conference opponent, and it's going to be a real challenge Friday night.
The negatives tend to stand out more than the positives after a game like that. And the big negative, obviously, was the play of the secondary. It was a disappointing afternoon for Kansas State in the secondary. Frequently, you had corners and safeties. It appeared just not on the same page. What have they talked about as maybe being the root cause of some of those difficulties? And do you feel like that's something that can get cleaned up by Friday night when it had better get cleaned up against maybe the best receiver in the country?
Yeah, they better. McMillan's really special. Fafita and him put together are really dangerous. They didn't have a great game against Northern Arizona, but I don't think that means a darn thing about what's going to happen on Friday night. The explanation has been pretty clear that, guys were peeking into the backfield or looking at the wrong things and losing track of receivers. And, if you talk to a secondary coach, they talk about eye discipline a lot, and they insist that's what it was. And a lot of it broke down. They think they can get it corrected. And they feel like it was just, one of those things that happens in the course of a game. Some guys were just not as locked in as they should be, but I would imagine getting locked in for Arizona shouldn't be a problem.
Was it a personnel issue, you think, in the sense that did you just feel like, hey, maybe we got to reevaluate what the ceiling is or how good this position group might be? Or do you still think that there's some confidence that guys like VJ Payne and Jordan Riley and Marquis Siegel, who've played a lot of football, can bounce back from that game and get their technique, get their communication on the same page and still be a formidable group back there as the season goes on?
Yeah, Jordan Riley didn't have a great game. I mean, he had an opportunity to maybe have an interception or at least break up the catch, and he just kind of froze in the end zone. He said he saw Marquis Siegel coming the other direction and was afraid they were going to injure each other, so he just kind of steered off, and it was a touchdown. Just things like that where guys might have been overthinking and just instead of playing. And I think they got better in the second half, but still had some issues. But you're right. You do that against Arizona, and you're going to pay a huge price and lose a game. And while it's not a conference game, it's a game with a conference opponent. I would imagine it counts in tiebreakers at the very least. It doesn't count in conference standings.
We're talking to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Over to the offensive side of the ball, Fitz. And for all of the preseason talk about letting Avery Johnson be Avery Johnson, why doesn't it feel like that's happened through two games?
I don't know. I'm really scratching my head. They, game one, they really bottled him up in the pocket and made him a pocket passer, which he isn't. He talked about in the post game. He got out and ran a little bit more at Tulane, but he still seems injury adverse. He's, stepping out of bounds on some plays where you didn't think he normally would. He had one really nice run where he split defenders, which he does extremely well. But yeah, he just hasn't quite settled in all the way. And I think part of it's been play calling. They're just being so careful with him. He's conscious of the fact that he can't get injured and he doesn't want to get injured. So I think he's just going to have to learn to manage that while playing his brand of football, which is a little more aggressive than what we've seen. And we have seen him against Tulane. Once he got out of the pocket and started moving around, his accuracy went way up. It's almost as if the more challenging the pass, the better thrower he is, because he had some clean pockets with throws down the field that he just missed on. One in particular that Sterling Lockett missed horribly on. So it's been a weird thing to watch, to have Avery Johnson just not quite putting on the show that Avery Johnson can put on, because basically the coaches aren't letting him do so.
Tim Fitzgerald is our guest, publisher of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us every Wednesday for the Wildcat Wrap-Up via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Fitz, if you were the one to build on that, who was in the ear of Connor Riley and Matt Wells and this offensive staff, Chris Kleiman as well, what would you want the run to, I guess, drop back or handoff split to be for Avery Johnson? How much quarterback run would you want in the game plan?
Not a ton. I think Kansas State needs to really become an RPO team and focus on that run-pass option. Let Avery play. Let him make the decisions on the fly, whether to hand it off, keep it, run it, throw it. I think that's what makes him special. And I hope they get back to that. And I hope they let him be on the field with Dylan and DJ at the same time and unleash some of the things that I know they've worked on. Give him weapons, make the defense stress as much as possible. And if you put them in an RPO situation, it doesn't matter if they've scouted you. They've still got to react and cover all the things they need to cover so that he doesn't take advantage of something. Once he sees it's open, you can take him away, but he'll hand it off to an effective running back or maybe even throw it downfield.
Would you be opposed? I don't know how to exactly phrase this question, but I want to see Avery Johnson grip it and rip it. Drop back, throw the ball, push it downfield. I know you were talking about that just a few moments ago. Would you be open to essentially letting Avery take more risks? When you do that, especially with a young, inexperienced quarterback, you're going to throw some interceptions, you're going to throw some bad balls. That just happens. And I know this K-State team believes and should believe that it can make it to the college football playoff. But I think take a few more risks, take a few more chances, even if they end up in turnovers, because I think that is where a young, hyper-talented quarterback can grow the most. Do you feel the same way? You would like to see some more risks, even if those gambles might not always pay off?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I've seen him throw balls in practice that are, a good 40 yards down the field, and he drops them in the bucket. So it's there. It's just doing it on a game day and, in front of a stadium crowd and with a different defense coming at you. So, I think they do need to stretch the field a little bit more. And, that'll just help their run game with DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards and whomever else, Joe Jackson, because you can stretch out that defense. I just don't feel like this offense is stressing defenses enough in terms of having multiple threats on every play that they have to worry about.
Dylan Edwards has been really impressive. I think everyone knew going in. Everyone knew in high school, Fitz, that he had incredible talent, incredible speed, all of that. And we've gotten to see flashes of it, not because he's been inconsistent, but because he hasn't been featured a whole lot. And that is something that this coaching staff has made very clear that they are aware of. Do you think that's something that can turn in a week, that, hey, maybe we kind of eased him into the offense these first two, and then we're going to hit the ground running with him? Or do you think it's going to be a slower process to get him as, one of the top 2 or 3 guys in terms of number of touches for this offensive unit?
Well, the reasons for him not seeing the field aren't exactly clear. And honestly, I should have asked it on Monday at the press conference. If there's problems with him learning the playbook so they don't have that many plays he can run, or something else going on. But I was astonished how little he was used in the first half. They came back in the second half, got him involved, and it really helped. I think we'll see him more involved on Friday. I think there's no doubt they've got to get him out there. He's a special talent. He can change the game. The issue, though, if you're Kansas State, you can't really just take DJ Giddens off the field. The kid's, racking up 100-yard game after 100-yard game. I think he's got 6 in a row now. So there's a lot of talent there, and trying to put it all out on the field together is proving to be a challenge, I guess.
How does the speed for this K-State team rack up to any team you've seen before between Avery and Dylan? And I don't think we think of DJ Giddens as a speed back, but he's got more than enough functional speed. How does this group stack up to any that you've covered before?
They're extremely fast, and they've got some speed on the outside too. They got some guys that can just flat out run, and I think without a doubt, Avery's the fastest quarterback Kansas State's ever had. He's just a true 4-3 guy that can absolutely get it ramped up very quickly. and you put in Dylan Edwards, who might actually be quicker than him. It's really impressive. And they got to find a way to get that out on the field and capitalize on the speed, which might be spreading out the defense a little bit more, so he's got more room to run.
A few more questions for Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. So, Fitz, how does this K-State offense match up with Arizona in particular? What things do you feel like they can exploit? We've talked a lot about some of the advantages that it feels like this Wildcat offense ought to have, but what advantages do you think they have against the Arizona defense going into Friday night?
That's been a defense that's kind of struggled. I mean, they gave up a lot of points in yardage to New Mexico, which was a bad team. They did a better job last week against Northern Arizona, but that's an FCS team that you wouldn't expect to score a ton of points. But they've given up some plays, and they had problems with a running quarterback last week with Northern Arizona, and it wasn't nearly the athlete or have the speed that you see with Avery Johnson. I think the young man was at Pitt State last year. And so it's interesting that they have had issues on defense. They've had some of the same problems K-State's had. They didn't start fast on offense last Saturday. So, this is a matchup of very similar teams in how they played in the first two games.
How important would it be for this Kansas State team to get through a non-conference schedule, even though, of course, this is a conference opponent, still a non-conference game? How important would it be to get through this 3-0? Because that's something they haven't done with regularity under Chris Kleiman.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. I think it built confidence. And then you go to BYU, which might be better than people expected, but that's still a winnable road game. And if you can take care of business, you're coming home at 4-0 with Oklahoma State. So they've got an opportunity here. They don't have a game on the schedule in the regular season while they won't be favored. I really believe that. And if you have a hiccup, you can still do a lot of damage. But boy, I tell you what, if you want to go to the college football playoff, you go to the Big 12 championship game at 12-0, because even if you lose, you're going to be in. And if you win, of course, you'll be in solidly. So I think this team's capable of that, but let's be honest, they got to play at a higher level. They just have to amp it up. The offense has to start faster. The defense has to be more consistently stout and not break down. And special teams needs to be special, because they were pretty blah last weekend at Tulane, and they were pretty good against Tennessee Martin, but they need to be consistently back on the front burner for K-State.
All right, last one here, Fitz. We got about a minute. Let's peer into the crystal ball. If you're doing a post-game winning recap of Kansas State beating Arizona Friday night, what do you think will be the main topic of discussion, the main positive thing that comes out of a K-State victory?
Well, I think it'd be about quarterback play. And if Kansas State can get pressure on Fafita and rattle him and get him down to the ground, not a real big guy, but he sees the field extremely well. So you've got to get him to the ground and get that passing game disrupted. And on the other side, Avery's got to settle in and do his thing, which is both throwing and running the ball. And if K-State wins the quarterback duel, K-State wins the game.
Tim Fitzgerald and his staff at GoPowerCat.com cover it all better than anyone. You can subscribe today and become a VIP member to get all of the great access to 24/7 sports. Fitz joins us weekly here on 580 Sports Talk for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, enjoy Friday night at the Bill. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, boys.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take a break, come back, and wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this. Wrapping up this 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, Dan and Brendan with you today until 5:30 when we'll hand it off to Royals baseball. Brendan, when it comes to this K-State game on Friday night, 7 o'clock kickoff, you'll hear it on our sister station, the big 94.5 Country, 94.5 WIBW FM, pregame at 5 o'clock. I think back to the Mizzou game for K-State last year, where going in, K-State was favored on the road, and everybody we talked to and all the talk out of Missouri was, this is not an explosive offense. We were promised fireworks. We have Luther Burden. Where's he been at? Why isn't this offense more explosive? Why won't they push it down the field? Why are they so buttoned up? There's no way this offense can hang with Kansas State. You remember what they did against Kansas State? They hit the throttle, baby.
Yeah, that was the game that kind of flipped the switch for them on the season, because they ended up as one of the country's best offenses.
And I'm thinking about that in the context of what we've seen the first 2 weeks from Kansas State, where it has not felt like they've, as I mentioned, let Avery Johnson be Avery Johnson. And we haven't seen a lot of Dylan Edwards, and we haven't seen a lot of like wide open, full throttle offense from Kansas State, the offense that I believed we were going to see from them this year. Chris Kleiman will swear up and down he's not a sandbagger, and I take him at his word largely, but I do think there's been some things tucked in the chamber for this game, because I think, just like Mizzou knew last year, that this could be at home a chance for a season-defining win in non-conference play going into a conference schedule. I think K-State's kind of treating this one the same way.
I think that's fair to say. I think, if you're using it as a comparison to last season, I think quarterback play, Brady Cook was way better than I thought he was going to be last year. I think Noah Fafita is still better than Brady Cook. Luther Burden, obviously, I think the best player in college football, all things considered. They had a bunch of other weapons, though. Like, Theo Weiss is really good. Yeah. Does Arizona have a Theo Weiss?
No.
I don't think they do. And I think that is notable for the defense in this game. Because to me, this game is going to be more about K-State's defense than it will be about the offense.
We'll talk much more about it as we get closer to Friday's kickoff. In the meanwhile, we'll talk Chiefs-Bengals, and we'll hear from Damian Ilalio of K-State next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski with you until 5:30, when we'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network for the series finale in the Bronx. Thanks for being with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and watching on our video stream. We welcome viewers new and old to check us out on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook, if you'd rather, WIBW News. Comment in the Facebook page in the comments. You can jump into the live chat on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and you can send us a text to the Top City Metal Supply text line at 785-272-9429. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Again, Royals baseball coming up at 5:30, so we've got an hour and a half left with you today. Still to come on the program, another round of What Is Wrong With You, including an update, not a happy one, about a winner, a weekly champion, and a monthly runner-up from last year. I went back and I checked because I wondered if maybe this story had won a month. It did not. It was a finalist. We'll have an update on an old story and 2 new stories trying to take down our current champion, the guy that, the convenience store clerk who beat a man within an inch of his life with a baseball bat because the guy was taking too much nacho cheese from the nacho cheese dispenser.
That's going to be hard to knock off.
Very normal thing to do. That guy should have listened when the clerk told him repeatedly, that's nacho cheese. That's nacho cheese. I don't know what got into me today.
I also don't know.
This is very unlike me. But again, this is just me aging gracefully into fatherhood and letting the dad jokes fly. Also this hour, earlier this week, I had a chance to catch up with Kansas State junior defensive tackle Damian Ilalio, the former Manhattan High Indian and now in a starting role for the Wildcats. Damian and I spoke earlier this week. We'll play that conversation for you later on this hour. We'll also have some sports headlines in the 5 o'clock hour, a preview of tonight's rubber match between the Royals and the Yankees, and, of course, the final word before we pass the baton to the Royals Baseball Network.
So before we get into Chiefs and Bengals today, a little piece of Chiefs news from practice. Hollywood Brown, no go. Still not practicing for the Chiefs. Don't have word on anyone else who is held out, but yeah, no Hollywood Brown yet. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Not really a limb. I don't think he's going to play this week.
Yeah, if he's not practicing by Wednesday, I'd have a hard time believing that they're going to get him back. I'm hopeful that he's at least been able to, stay in condition, do some light jogging while the shoulder injury heals. But it was always best case scenario that he could make it back for this game. And so it's not something that concerns me for the long haul about Brown's availability. It might be another week. It might even be another 2 to 3. I mean, remember when they announced what the injury was, it was like a 4 to 8 week timeline. So there's a lot of gray area in here following week 1. We knew he'd at least miss the opener. This was the best case to have him back. Worst case, you get him back for week 5.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I quite put it together, especially with the Bengals looking kind of rough, and you already have the Ravens game done with. This upcoming stretch for the Chiefs is, on paper, light work. You already got the Ravens out of the way. You won that game. The Bengals, we'll get to that game here in a second. The Falcons have a quarterback who can't move. The Chargers are going to play like adults. They are going to play adult football going forward because Jim Harbaugh is their coach. Also, their new left tackle, Joe Alt, might be special. He shut out Max Crosby this past weekend. Crosby got his when they moved him inside. He actually had 7 pressures or something from the interior. Against Joe Alt, 0 for 14. 14 times head-to-head, Alt won all of them, which is bananas. Here's the thing about their cornerbacks, though. You would probably start at nickel.
That's not great.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
My lateral and back pedal movements are not what they need to be an effective NFL cornerback.
Yeah, their defensive depth chart.
With literally everything else about me physically.
The defensive depth chart for the Chargers, not good. Don't love that matchup for them. And then you've got the Saints the first week of October. That's a Monday night game, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, the Saints put up $1 million on a terrible Panthers team, but I'm not scared of that team.
I'm not wavering on whether or not I think they're going to be particularly good. I think they're a very average to slightly below football team.
And then things start to pick up after the bye week. Chiefs, remember, have the really early bye this year. 49ers at Raiders. You get the Buccaneers at home. Broncos, Bills.
Buccaneers is Monday night, I believe.
Yes, you are correct about that.
Weirdly, all like 3 of the 4 NFC South games are primetime games.
Yeah. That is very strange. Very, very strange. So, yeah, I mean, now with the Ravens out of the way, and if the Bengals are not their full form, or if their full form is not good this year, all of a sudden the rest of the schedule looks exceptionally manageable. And there's probably one you trip up. That happens.
Happens every year, and usually it happens early, right? Like last year it was literally week 1, but like you remember the trip to Indianapolis 2 years ago, and there's usually a game early in the schedule where the Chiefs stub their toe.
And I'm looking at this schedule, man. Texans late in the year. The Browns. Is Deshaun Watson going to play? Honestly, that defense.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, if Watson plays, Chiefs win. They just don't even bother playing. You know what's terrifying, though? A team with a legitimately good defense and Jameis Winston at quarterback. It could be anything. It could be 4 interceptions. He could go for 400 yards. There is absolutely no way to know. So, like, that's a tougher game depending on who their quarterback is. But you get the Bills, again, Bucks and Niners. You play the Panthers this year. You play the Steelers, who I'm not scared. I wouldn't be scared of either of those quarterbacks. You play the Broncos twice, the Raiders and Gardner Minshew twice. Like, this schedule lightens up a lot after these first 2 weeks, which, to the point I know you're about to make, makes it feel weird that this week, what has been a legitimate rivalry in the AFC and for the Chiefs for the last, including this 4 seasons now, it's kind of just a ho-hum week. Like, yeah, Bengals.
Yeah, this has been a front page game in the NFL for the last 3-4 seasons since it's been Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes. And last year, obviously, it wasn't Joe Burrow. It was Jake Browning who quarterbacked the Bengals in that eventual Chiefs victory in December. And that obviously removed some luster from last year's meeting. But yeah, it's week 2. It's not in a primetime slot. It's the national game at 3:25 Central Time. The majority of households in the United States are going to be watching Nance and Romo call this game. But I can't help but feel going into this week like there's just not the same juice than there has been for the previous regular season meetings. And I was thinking about why, and I think there are a lot of different reasons for it. The most obvious reasons are Bengals related. This is not the same Bengals team. Just in terms of firepower, in terms of potency, in terms of how much of a threat they feel like right now to the Chiefs' AFC supremacy, that is at a lower level than I believe it has been in the last 3-4 years, because Joe Burrow might be limited physically. Jamar Chase is just getting back into the practice swing and was limited in week 1. T. Higgins didn't practice today. Tyler Boyd's not on the team anymore. Joe Mixon isn't on the team anymore. That secondary that gave Mahomes such fits in that fateful 2021 AFC Championship game has been taken apart. The Bengals feel diminished in a way that the Chiefs have never felt diminished in the Mahomes era. Even after the Tyreek Hill trade, it never felt like the Chiefs were like a lesser version of the Chiefs. And again, that's all Mahomes. I keep thinking about what Matt Verderame called Mahomes. We talked to him. It was for our season preview. It was 2 weeks ago when he referred to Mahomes as the greatest force multiplier in the NFL, where just having him is such a head start over any other team. So the Chiefs, as long as Mahomes is Mahomes, are never going to feel like they are really a diminished football team. But the Bengals feel diminished because this isn't the same offense, even with Burrow and Chase and Higgins all 100%. And we're not going to see that on Sunday.
No, this defensive roster sucks for Cincinnati. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, up front, Hubbard, Hill, Rankins, Hendrickson. That's a lot of H's. A lot of those players on their own are nice players, but there's nothing there that makes you think, oh, God, Juwan Taylor's screwed. Up the middle, oh, no, Creed Humphrey's going to have his hands full. Like, I don't really feel like that's the case. Their linebacker core is okay. I mean, Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, they really run more of a 4-2-5 like most teams do these days. They're both fine players. Cam Taylor-Britt and Dax Hill. Dax Hill converted safety because, well, he was A, bad at safety, and B, they just didn't have another option at outside corner. They moved him this offseason, and he won the job, which should tell you all you need to know. Mike Hilton is still playing. He's their nickelback. Von Bell and Geno Stone, that's a good group at safety, but I don't know, man. Like, that's a lot of, oh, nice. Like, there's nothing. You look at the Chiefs defense, and the guys I think of is like, oh, I think Nick Bolton is that kind of player. Like, oh, nice. Like, Nick Bolton. Cool. Yeah. Like, that's nice. Or you might think of George Karlaftis like that, kind of in a Trey Hendrickson role. Like, yeah, like, that's a nice player to have. He's maybe not an elite edge rusher, but he's good enough. But the Chiefs also have Chris Jones. The Chiefs also have Trent McDuffie. Last season, they had L'Jarius Sneed. Like, they've got I think Karlaftis might even be closer to that category. Like, they've got guys you have to game plan around. Who on that defense are you game planning around?
Nobody.
None of them. None of them. Even last year.
No, there's no, the guy that keeps you up at night is Lou Anarumo, and he's the coach. He's the signal caller.
And eventually, and like, if you have a bunch of B- players, or, B to somewhere in the B category players, you might have some really good games, but there are going to be times when you are limited because you don't have those top end playmakers. And even last year, when the safety group was worse because they brought back Von Bell and they brought in Geno Stone this offseason, their safety room is worse, but at least I think the defensive line was a lot better because Hendrickson and Hubbard, they're fine players. Hendrickson's a little bit older, but in the middle, they had DJ Reader, who's one of the most underrated players in the NFL. You at least had to say, well, there's a force in the middle. It might be more run stuff than it is pass rush, but there is a big hulking mammoth in the middle of the field that you have to make sure you get away from. BJ Hill ain't that guy. Sheldon Rankins at this point in his career ain't that guy. There's a lot of nice. There's not a lot of uh-oh. And that is not a good place to be against the Kansas City Chiefs because you're letting the Chiefs just run their stuff then. You're letting them run the offense without having to game plan for. Can't throw to that side of the field. Got to avoid the spine. You can work all over the place. Their run defense is butt. It is grade A certified pork butt.
And if they want to play,
you cannot get the rushing props yet. They're not up at many of the sports books yet. Prairie Band Sportsbook in Mayetta included. Wait for those to pop up. I'm telling you right now. Picks, our Prairie Band Sportsbook picks, Friday at 4:00, Pacheco rushing yards over. This team can't stop the run. None of the... Logan Wilson, fine player. He's a pass defending linebacker. Jermaine Pratt is a slow off-ball linebacker. Pacheco's going to run all over these guys.
If they want to play too high safety, which has been sort of their formula for slowing down or limiting Mahomes as much as any team has been able to claim that they have in the last half decade.
They were the poster boys for that in 21.
Yes, after the AFC Championship game, because it was obviously something that worked. You want to do that now? The Chiefs have the best interior line in football, and they've got running backs that are going to punish you. And you don't have a DJ Reader in the middle to make it work, to really hold up. So you want to drop a safety? You're going to say, okay, we're going to fill up the box. Okay, great. Meet Xavier Worthy. Meet this revamped passing game. So, yes, the Bengals feel diminished on the field. Also, the other juicy stuff away from the field doesn't feel like there's much of that anymore either. The Burrowhead thing completely lost steam after the 2022 AFC Championship game. Cincinnati's mayor isn't talking. I've forgotten that guy's name. Jabroni. That's his name. Travis Kelce called him that. That's his name now. Mayor Jabroni in Cincinnati. We're not hearing from him anymore. Last year, Orlando Brown joined the Bengals. That was interesting for like 5 minutes. Then I remembered the other day. Oh, yeah. And Orlando Brown Jr. is on the Bengals. Yeah, I remember that. That's nice. Good for them. There's just not that much juice. And I think part of a broader point about where the Chiefs are in this dynasty of theirs, that nothing that happens in the regular season really matters all that much. Like, oh, you got your pound of flesh off the Chiefs in the regular season. Good for you. Do it when it matters. That's what nobody is doing. Nobody cares about Bills Chiefs in the regular season. Even though the Bills keep winning that game, nobody gives them any credit for it because it doesn't matter, because they play those guys in January and they get pantsed every time.
Well, and the narrative doesn't exist because there's no narrative for the Chiefs, and there's all sorts of unrelated ones for the Bengals. Like Jamar Chase's contract situation, T. Higgins being injured and banged up in his contract situation.
That's another great point. Like, the Bengals are going through enough of their own stuff right now that like, getting up for, oh, this is our chance to show that we could be the big bad bullies in the AFC. That's not like the primary importance for the Bengals in this game.
And the Burrow injury, like that's not Burrow's fault. That's not as self-inflicted as some of these other issues, but like, what is he going to be able to do this year? Like, I love the guy, but I was not impressed week one. And week one is fluky. It always is. And there's always a game or two where you go, whoa, is so-and-so going to be great? Is this team going to be bad? No, generally not. Who did the Bills lose to a couple years ago? Is it Pittsburgh? Yeah, they got their ass beat by the Steelers.
Yeah.
Oh man. Are the Bills frauds? Were they a 1 year? No, they're good. Josh Allen, in fact, is very good. Sean McDermott can, in fact, coach. Like, you got to pump the brakes after week one sometimes because it's essentially the final preseason week for a lot of these teams. We talked about that on Monday with Matt Verderam, but it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in you. All of the other non-Chiefs things that the Bengals have to deal with. Meanwhile, it's just business as usual for the Chiefs.
For the Chiefs, it's none of this really matters as long as we win enough football games to get to January, which we will, at which point the AFC goes through us.
It is kind of amazing, though, how much last year influenced that because, and granted, from our perspective, the Royals being good, our attention is also more elsewhere.
A little bit more divided than it's ever been.
Than it ever has been in this iteration of 580 Sports Talk. But like last year, week to week, it was, oh, there's this, oh, there's this. Today, it's, Hollywood Brown's out. Maybe he'll be back next week, maybe 3 weeks. Whatever. It all feels so superfluous because the Chiefs just took the worst team they've had in the last 6 years and still won a Super Bowl.
That was the tipping point where it's just like, okay, none of this matters as long as Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback. Like, none of this regular season stuff, none of this drama, none of this week to week. If they make it to January, somebody's got to beat Mahomes in January. And there's only one active quarterback who's done that. And you can argue, I think you would, from the Bengals' perspective, that ought to be a bigger deal. But again, that's not the big deal for the Bengals right now. They got to get their own house in order. They got to figure out, because this year feels like the year it has to happen. We've been talking about that for the last 2 years. We've seen this coming. We've seen the writing on the wall that after this year, you got to make hard decisions about Jamar Chase, about T. Higgins. You probably only get to keep one of those guys. You're paying Burrow. So now it gets more difficult. You stop playing the game on easy mode and you have to figure out how to put a roster around a quarterback making 50 to 60 million a year. And the Bengals have a history in their front office and their ownership that should give you pause if you are inclined to believe that that's something they can do, no matter what you think of Joe Burrow. So this is the year. This is the gotta have it year for the Cincinnati Bengals. And it has started like this with all kinds of offseason drama and a pratfall at home against a team that might end up, when all is said and done, being the worst in the AFC. So they've got their own issues. They can't come into this game talking about any Burrowhead. No, fix your own house. So that also strips this game from a little bit of its luster.
Makes me want the Chiefs to stumble just for the sake of intrigue. Like, as long as they keep just doing this, I mean, there's nothing like it, and I'm not a fan per se, so it doesn't sound as spoiled, but like we've seen this movie. Like, the Chiefs are just better than everyone else. Andy Reid does his thing. Mahomes does his thing. Kelsey does his thing. They beat you up. They win. Some games are closer than you think they should be because apparently we all just forget the NFL is really hard to win in. And then they make it to the postseason, they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you get to January, and Mahomes is better than the other quarterback and makes one more play, and that's how it goes. Like, that's kind of what we expect. And for somebody to divert from that expectation that we have, doing it in week 2 only counts but so much. We've seen the Chiefs lose early in the season. We've seen them lose to inferior teams. It's the regular season. Somebody's going to have to do it in January. And we're getting far enough removed from that 2021 AFC Championship game. Like, remember, coming out of that, the Bengals won that game, came back at Arrowhead to win that game, and it did feel like, okay, maybe the AFC is up for grabs now. Maybe there's a real rivalry that's going to start to form where Burrow and Allen and Mahomes are trading it back and forth year after year. That's not what's happening.
Yeah, to really add to the point, Mark on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube comments also mentions Chiefs went on the road and won in the postseason this past. Like, there's nothing. All the obstacles you would normally put in, in front of the Chiefs regarding like narrative, there aren't any. They need to create new ones at this point because they've answered all those. They've won on the road. They won after trading Tyreek Hill. They won with this change on defense. There's what is the next thing going to be? I don't know that the Bengals are in a position where they can answer that. I don't know that this year there's it turns out the Chiefs apparently never practiced for too high and they don't really know how to respond to it, which eventually they did, and then they immediately won a Super Bowl. Are the Bengals the team that's going to figure that out this year? Probably not. As they are currently constructed, probably not.
I'm not picking the Bengals, spoiler alert, but they've got a lot of talent on their roster. Would it be surprising if they came to Arrowhead and won? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that they will not be favored. I think at the last I saw the line, it was 5 points, maybe 4.5, maybe 5, depending on where you look. But like, things happen in the NFL, and they've won at Arrowhead before. They could come out and win in week 2, and maybe that would add a little bit of juice back to what doesn't feel like it has a lot of juice right now regarding this rivalry, but I would be really surprised. And what I have been surprised about is just how little it feels like there's a lot of buzz around this game, because the buzz around the Bengals right now is not they're the threat to the Chiefs. The buzz around the Bengals right now is, are they going to get it together? They're going to get their poop in a group and really contend in the AFC North and really contend in the AFC in the last year where they might be the best version of themselves or anywhere close to it.
I've never heard poop in a group before.
Yeah, that's another dad thing. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. Still to come this 4 o'clock hour. We'll have another round of What Is Wrong With You and my conversation from earlier this week with Kansas State junior defensive tackle Damian Ilalio. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. for another round of What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 2 new stories to get to today to try and take down our champion for the week. But first, remember last year when the guy shot his 12-year-old grandson at a wedding?
Yeah, that was late in the year, right?
September,
almost exactly a year.
Happened about a year ago, and it was a monthly finalist. I think it was a finalist in September. I'm trying to remember if rack my brain here a little bit to try and remember what it lost to in the.
That was a great month.
Yes, last September was a tremendous month. Last month's September champion ended up being the human hamster wheel.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy who tried to cross the Atlantic in a hamster wheel of his own making. Yeah, so
man, banger after banger. That's one of the best months we've ever had, I think.
Tough beat. Anyhow, story resurfaced yesterday from the AP because the shooter in question, who is a county commissioner in the state of Texas, was sentenced to 1 year of probation. 63-year-old Michael Gardner was sentenced on Monday for misdemeanor child abuse. His 12-year-old grandson survived the shoulder wound, but suffered significant tissue and muscle loss. He was trying to fire a revolver to symbolize the start of the outdoor wedding ceremony near the small town of Denton in southeastern Nebraska. But as he was cocking the gun's hammer, it fired. I think also it was a homemade gun. No, it was a homemade blank.
Yeah, gunpowder and glue.
Yeah, it was a homemade blank. And it went off and just ripped through his grandson's shoulder. So, yeah, you got 1 year of probation for that. That's your What Is Wrong With You update for a story that we did last year. Now for the modern stuff. Again, our current champion, Bully, the Nacho Cheese Bully. Guy's name was really on the nose. 47-year-old Myron Bully, who was working at an Arco gas station in Las Vegas. Somebody came in, was using too much nacho cheese from the dispenser, so Bully beat the bejesus out of him with a bat. Sent him to the hospital with what were determined at the time to be life-threatening injuries. Thankfully, the guy's okay, but Bully was arrested and charged. 2 new stories today. Brendan, why don't you go first?
If someone told you that they liked your car, how would you respond?
I've had that happen before, not recently. I have an older model of the Dodge Charger, but like when I first got my Charger, there would be people who would say, "Hey, man, cool car." Even though it's kind of the dad version of the Dodge Charger, with the doesn't have the Hemi, but yeah, people would compliment my car, and I would say, "Thanks, man."
Yeah,
and go about my day.
Cool. That's fine. Well, in Polk County, Florida, on Sunday, a guy who was had his car complimented did not take kindly to it. In fact, it led to him punching the guy in the face.
What?
According to the Polk County Sheriff's Office on Sunday at 5:45 p.m., the driver was headed down Tyndall Camp Road on the way to the nearby Scenic Highway when John Sturgeon suddenly stopped his vehicle, approached the driver in question, and punched him in the face. Deputies asked the victim what might have been the provocation, and the victim said, well, he waved his hand at the 53-year-old Sturgeon and just told him, "Hey, nice car." Sturgeon, however, did not take too kindly to that. You can hear on video of this incident happening, "I'm trying to tell you, nice car, bro. I like your car." The victim can be heard saying in dash cam video released by the sheriff's office. The video showed Sturgeon walking from his Dodge Challenger back to the victim, and then after punching him, back to his own car.
See, people like those sporty Dodge sports cars.
Sturgeon was not home when the police showed up for him, so they had to issue a warrant for his arrest. He found out his video had gone viral and then turned himself in. Wow. You know, honest to God, if someone did that, they rolled down their window and waved and yelled, "Nice car" to me. You know what I would do? I would just ignore it.
Yeah, probably.
Like, you're probably being weird. I'm just like, I drive a mid-sized SUV, man. You're probably just being weird.
Like, if you have a car like that, like a jet black Dodge Challenger, that is surely not the first time you've gotten a compliment about your car.
Right.
So
slugged the dude in the face.
Wild move. He looks a little aggro, like big, like definitely doesn't miss bench press day at the gym. Balding.
Protein shake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Protein shake.
He also looks a little bit like the guy.
A tank top, wearing a tank top around. I know it's Florida, but still.
He looks like an older version of the guy who said he can turn 1 week into 21 days.
Yes.
If you've never seen that video,
Yeah.
please Google
How
it.
many days are in a week? Actually, it's 8.
I get 21 days in a week. Boom, I kick your butt.
I also appreciate that you got this story from a radio station website, 97X. Bam. The future of rock and roll. Have you never seen Rain Man?
I've never seen Rain Man.
97X.
No, I've never seen Rain Man.
Yeah, the future.
I know the gist of Rain Man, but I've never actually seen the film.
Dustin Hoffman's character.
Yeah.
He's like repeating it over and over again on a car ride, drives Tom Cruise insane. Anyway, for my story today, we're going to the Great White North. We're going to Canada.
Oh, God.
A man from the Quebec City area will be sentenced on Friday for negligent use of explosives after admitting that he performed stunts to boost his views on social media in order to make money. Whom among us? 43-year-old Dominique Pelletier was arrested back in February at his home in Stoneham, Quebec, following a police investigation into videos on Facebook and TikTok showing him creating increasingly large explosions by blowing up various objects. Quebec provincial police searched Pelletier's home and seized pipe bombs, propane tanks, burned aerosol cans, and ammunition. Pelletier has now pled guilty, explaining he was unemployed at the time, was trying to get online attention so he can monetize the videos. The prosecution and defense lawyers proposed a 1-year community sentence for Pelletier, leaving Judge Steve Magnan puzzled. How old are you? Magnan asked, despite knowing the answer. Man, you know how bad you got to have screwed up for somebody to ask how old you are, even if they know the answer to that question. The judge remarked that the notion of making money this way would have been inexplicable for an 18-year-old, but at 43, he said, leaving the thought unfinished. Magnan told the defendant what he did potentially endangered his life and those of others. I was reckless, Pelletier admitted, who is now working full-time and asserts that he has taken control of his life. He is awaiting sentencing. It will be Friday. We'll try and update you on that one, too.
Yeah, dude, that's dumb.
Unemployed 43-year-old man decides he's going to blow stuff up on TikTok to make money.
People don't realize...
It would be a very American story if he weren't Canadian.
Yeah, people don't realize how much work it takes to be an influencer. It's a lot. I don't think it quite works that quickly.
No.
But I appreciate the grind.
Hey, yeah, seriously. You any port in a storm, you're trying to get that paper, but no, don't like endanger the public blowing up propane tanks.
Right.
Like, he's lucky he didn't hurt himself.
That one, well, you know what? I'm going to go with the car punch here, but I think that's more truly what is wrong with you. Like, this guy had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
This guy knew what he was doing. He kind of fessed up to it. Like, yeah, that's what I was doing. The other one is truly inexplicable to me.
Yeah, like, hey, he drives a cool car. He should be used to getting compliments on his Dodge Challenger.
If you're driving like you said, if you're driving a jet black Dodge Challenger, people who get weird and annoyed when you make a comment about their unique car. Okay, dude, drive a Malibu. Like, if you don't want comments, drive a Civic.
And yeah, like people really like those Challengers, Chargers. Like, again, I know from experience, it's what I drive.
I'm going to stick with the nacho cheese bully for the week, though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So yeah, we'll go with the nice car, bro, today. But Bully, the nacho cheese bully, moves on to tomorrow's our What Is Wrong With You winner. Coming up next, Damian Ilalio, this junior defensive tackle from K-State, joins us on 580 Sports Talk. 444 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Brendan hanging out with you. Earlier this week, I had a chance to chat with a former Manhattan High Indian and current Kansas State Wildcat defensive tackle, Damian Ilalio. We talked about the start to the season so far for the Cats, his background in recruitment, whether or not he misses another sport he was excellent at in high school, and his hidden talent. It was a fun chat. Without any further ado, here I am with Damian Ilalio.
Damian, I know it wasn't the most satisfying performance for the defense as a whole throughout the 60 minutes against the Green Wave, but to be able to produce the game-winning score, the defense creating a turnover, and then hold there, get the interception from VJ Payne in the end zone, did ending on a high note give you some things to be positive about as you continue to work on getting better each week?
Yeah, you always want to stay positive when you get a win, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's pretty or ugly, it's still a win at the end of the day, So we're just very grateful that we were able to pull together and get that win, and we're looking on to the next week. So
through two games, personally for yourself, getting more snaps, more action than you have to this point in your career, how do you feel like you're already seeing some of the work that you've put in, whether that's in the weight room or on the practice field or in film study? How do you see that paying off for you? How do you recognize that you've improved yourself individually?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just the trust from my teammates. I feel like I've always had the work ethic, and I've always worked as hard as I could, as if I was taking 50 snaps a game. But just to know that my teammates trust me a little bit more, that they've seen me on the field, they've seen what I could do during spring ball, during fall camp, during our summer workouts, and them putting that trust in me as well as the coaches, that means more to me than any of the snaps that I could get in the game.
We're talking with Damian Ilalio, the junior defensive tackle for the Kansas State Wildcats, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Your position group, I'll talk about the whole defensive line first, because they've really flashed the first 2 weeks. There's a lot of speed. There's a lot of athleticism, particularly coming from that defensive end position. When you have gone to work with those guys, when you work with them in practice, when you drill with them, how have you seen their improvement, the unit-wide improvement, particularly, coming from a defensive end group that was kind of largely unknown coming into this season?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is they're very competitive with each other. They push each other every day. They've got two great older veteran leaders, and Cody Stuffelbein and Brendan Mott. And, the younger guys just they're like sponges. They learn as much as they can from those older guys, and they try to compete against each other because they know that they're good, and they know that they can all be better, with more work. And just continuing to never be satisfied is probably the biggest thing, their biggest attribute that helps them with their success.
For the defensive tackles in particular, there's you and there's Uso Sayamalo as well, and it's a group that, again, behind you two guys isn't maybe the most experienced. So you having that experience and now becoming an upperclassman, a veteran on this team, how have you tried to set an example for the younger guys?
Yeah, so just doing things right, being proactive, not only in the facility and in football, but also in everything else. It's hard to focus on meetings on Friday when you have homework that's still due, when you have maybe things that you wish you had studied more about the game plan and all of that stuff. So being really proactive and setting a good routine for these young guys is really important, and I've tried to help them as much as I can for advice that they need to make anything easier, whether they need help with homework, whether they need help with what to make for dinner that night, or what they should eat for breakfast in the morning after a lift, before a lift. All those different things contribute really big to Saturday. So
we're talking with Damian Ilalio, the junior defensive tackle for the Kansas State Wildcat and former Manhattan High Indian. Damian, I cover high school football in the area, so I remember watching you play in high school, and getting to see you play at Kansas State is a pretty cool thing. But for you, what's the best part of playing college football and going to school in the same place you went to high school?
I think it's just the community. I came into Manhattan my freshman year. My dad was military, so we got stationed at Fort Riley, and it was very, unknown to me, but the community was so welcoming, and I'm very able to call this place my second home, and trying to repay all the people who have looked after me. My family moved back to Washington, where I'm originally from, and, the coaches over here, people I knew from high school, the families of teammates that I had in high school who, might have gone to a different college, their families are still telling me, if I need anything, they're there for me. And just, having everybody give their support to me means the world. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to give back to them in the form of football.
So I'm guessing that from a military background, you might have done a lot of moving around as a kid, including the move that brought you to Manhattan originally. How much of that was a part of the choice to stay in Manhattan and play at Kansas State? That feeling like you wanted to maybe have some roots, that Manhattan had become a special place to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the military background had a big thing to do with it, but also when I got recruited, it was during COVID. So I never had an official visit anywhere. I never had, any visits anywhere, actually, because we were all in lockdown. So I had a lot of virtual Zooms and a lot of, virtual campus tours and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it was just more comfortable and a better situation for me to just stay at the place that I've called, that I called home for the past 4 years. So for me, it was a no-brainer decision once I got the offer, but COVID had a lot to do with it. Being, in a military background had a lot to do with it too.
Couple of more questions for Damian Ilalio, the junior defensive tackle for the Kansas State Wildcats. Damian, you were also quite a wrestler in high school, and I know that football coaches love multi-sport guys, and line coaches in particular love wrestlers. Do you miss wrestling, and how much did wrestling help you as a football player?
Yeah, for sure. Wrestling, I miss wrestling a lot, actually. I would, contemplate every once in a while whether I wanted to wrestle or play football in college, but, at the end of the day, football is my favorite. So, but I do miss wrestling a lot. I love the competitiveness. I love the workouts and, all the ins and outs of it, being able to go in a match and just let loose for however long. But wrestling has taught me a lot about body control, a lot about having leverage, a lot about just being, nasty, being violent, being all the things that you need to be as a defensive lineman to be a good defensive lineman, So wrestling really helped me out a lot.
Last thing for you, Damian, I have to know this. We have seen you on television or in the stands at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. We've seen you get after quarterbacks. We've seen you tackle running backs. But what's something that we haven't seen, a hidden talent, if you will, of Damian Ilalio's? What's your hidden talent?
I think my biggest hidden talent is probably that in Manhattan High School, I was in the chamber orchestra, and I can actually play the viola really well.
Okay.
And I like to bring it out every once in a while and show people it's like my party trick. But I really enjoy playing, and
So for the people who don't know, what's the difference between the viola and the violin?
Viola's just a little bit bigger. I couldn't exactly hold a violin very well, so I had to go the next size up.
The bigger guy needs the bigger instrument, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's a big presence in the middle of the defensive line for the Kansas State Wildcats, who are 2-0 going into Friday night's showdown with the Arizona Wildcats. Damian Ilalio, the former Manhattan High Indian, current K-State Wildcat Jr. Thanks so much for the time, Damian. Best of luck on Friday night and throughout the season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was Damian Ilalio. Really enjoyed that chat with the junior defensive tackle for the Wildcats. We'll take a break, come back, wrap up this 4 o'clock hour. 580 Sports Talk next. 4:55 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Brendan, two-man game this afternoon on the program. Thanks again to Damian Ilalio for taking some time to chat with me earlier this week at K-State's media availability. Plays the viola.
My sister played the viola.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Were you ever in like orchestra, band, anything like that, play an instrument?
God, no.
Okay.
Both of my sisters were. My younger sister played the viola in the school orchestra. My older sister spent a year in marching band. She played the flute. Well, played in air quotes. No, not for me.
Yeah, my brother had a drum set, and he and his buddies started a little band and recorded a CD and pressed it. And I've still got some copies.
What'd they play?
Like the kind of like scream metal that was popular at the time.
Hell yeah.
Not quite screamo, I wouldn't call it, but
yeah, real guttural stuff.
Yeah. I can get you the Rights of Avalon CD if you ever want to hear it sometime. But not much traction outside of like talent shows, and I think they did one gig.
Bummer.
Yeah, but no. So my brother was definitely the musical one. I know how to play a G chord on a guitar, and I can play a little bit of a tune on the recorder, but that's all I've got for you musically.
Yeah, nothing for me.
No.
I never tried, never failed, but never succeeded either.
Our instruments are our voices. Truly.
Yeah.
We'll take a break here. We got one more half hour of 580 Sports Talk coming up. In that final half hour, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, including the new Late Night in the Fog headliner. Late replacement, but I think it's a great choice. Also, one NFL player ripping the Chiefs medical staff in a huge ratings weekend for the NFL in week one. All that and a Royals preview before we give way at 5:30 on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final half hour of this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk with Dan Lucero and Brendan Dworzinski. Thanks for hanging out with us, making us a part of your Wednesday afternoon here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our video stream, whether you're catching that on Facebook, WIBW News, or on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. However you are consuming the show, thanks for being here. We appreciate you being along. Again, we've got one more half hour of the show today before we hand it off to the Royals Baseball Network for the series finale, the rubber game at Yankee Stadium between the Royals and the Yankees. Tomorrow we'll actually have a full show. That'll be weird. We haven't had one of those all week. Then it'll be our only one of the week because we're off at 5 on Friday when the Royals open a series in Pittsburgh against the Pirates.
And tomorrow night is the start of a jam-freaking-packed football weekend for us.
That is a fact.
4 straight days of football.
Yes, indeed. 4 straight days of football in the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations, starting tomorrow night with 580 Preps Thursday Night Football, presented by Lewis Toyota from Hummer Sports Park. The Topeka High Trojans welcoming the Wichita Heights Falcons to the capital city. Spencer Dupuis on the play-by-play, yours truly on color analysis on the 580 Preps Thursday Night Football game presented by Lewis Toyota. That is coming up tomorrow night. Then on Friday night, we got football all over the place. K-State football, of course, on Friday night against Arizona. Pre-game coverage beginning at 5. The kickoff at Bill Snyder Family Stadium at 7. That game will be heard on our sister station, the Big 94.5 Country, 94.5 FM, WIBW FM. On that side of the dial, the complete broadcast will be heard, so we can bring you Royals baseball here on 580. Over on Classic Country 106.9, we'll have the Lewis Toyota Game of the Week. That will also be at Hummer Sports Park, where the Topeka West Chargers will play host to the Shawnee Heights Thunderbirds, a city rivalry in the United Kansas Conference. Yours truly on the play-by-play. Greg Akagi joins me in the booth. Spencer Dupuis down on the sideline for that one. Then on Saturday, we got Washburn football over on Classic Country 106.9. Brendan, you want to tell the people about that one?
It will be Washburn versus Washburn coach Craig Schurig's alma mater for the first time since 2010. The Colorado School of Mines Ore Diggers are coming to town. That'll be a 1 o'clock kickoff Saturday from Yager Stadium. Home opener for the Ichabods. It'll be Keller Hurla and Hayden Clark rotating at quarterback again for Washburn as Sam Van Dyne recovers from a lingering knee injury, although sounds like he is improving at a rapid pace. Hoping to get him back within the next couple of weeks, which is obviously a huge positive. Coming off the bye week, really excited for Washburn to get back on the field. Here's an interesting note for you, Dan. Pretty much everybody who is going to be in the press box come Saturday afternoon, at one point in time, worked for 580 WIBW.
Right.
So I will be doing the play-by-play over on Country 106.9 for Washburn football, per usual. Fletcher Terrell will not be joining me. He's got the week off. So our good friend Greg Akagi is going to handle the color commentary for radio on Saturday. Greg obviously works here at 580. Our sideline reporter, Trenton Kraxner, former 580 Sports Talk intern, sideline voice for Washburn, he will be there. Dan is going to be handling the in-house PA at Yager Stadium.
That's right. If you're in the house on Saturday, that will be my voice you hear over the public address. And it's Hall of Fame Day, so I get to introduce all the Hall of Famers, which I'm really excited about.
It is not.
No?
No.
I got it wrong. That's next week, isn't it?
No, it's next month.
Why do I...
Were you on the Washburn website?
Yep.
Yep, they've got the splash page up already.
They shouldn't do that to me. Gene!
October 5th, though, Hall of Fame Day. That'll be fun.
Gene, you had me out here looking silly. Have to have a word with Gene Castle. No, all kidding aside, excited to be there.
Yes, and that'll be very exciting. And
whatever happens at halftime, I'm happy to introduce it.
On the TV side, because not only will the radio broadcast be streamed on the MIAA network, but we had this news story for you a few weeks ago. Channel 38 in Kansas City, 38.1, The Spot. They are doing an MIAA Game of the Week that is broadcast to everyone who can pick up that station. So if you're here in Topeka, you can probably only get it if you have one of those 100-foot antennas. Not the length of the antenna, but the reach of the antenna. But if you're in the Kansas City area, you can watch that game on TV. Don't even need basic cable. That's just an over-the-air station in Kansas City. The play-by-play team for the TV broadcast, Bruce Steinbrock on play-by-play, longtime former sports director here, former voice of Washburn, and his color analyst is going to be none other than Jake LeBon. So that is...
We got him back in the booth, folks.
That is a lot of people who at one point or another were 580 WIBW sports director all in one set of rooms at the same time.
That is a fact. Boy, we couldn't get Mark Elliott up there. I'm sure he'll be at the game.
He might be there. Mark just might show up.
Yeah, he may just pop in, poke his head in.
Whichever mic he wants. Like, yeah, here you go. Here you go, Lefty.
So, yes, looking forward to that. That is a 12:30 pregame and a 1 o'clock kickoff over on Classic Country 106.9 KTPK FM. Also, on Saturday, if you're looking for a football game, we will be bringing you coverage from Compass Media Networks of the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Wisconsin Badgers. Pregame coverage for that one at 10:30, kickoff at 11. You'll hear that one right here on 580 WIBW. A little bit of a special college football broadcast for you as you're driving around or hanging out wanting to listen to a ball game on Saturday.
Fill the void from not having K-State on the air.
Exactly. That'll be ahead of Royals baseball where they play on Saturday night. And then, of course, Sunday afternoon, Chiefs-Bengals, 3:25 kickoff, 2 o'clock pregame coverage on 580 WIBW. No, check that, on the big 94.5 Country.
Yes.
Once again, because, again, we will have Royals baseball on Sunday afternoon. So that game, the Chiefs and the Bengals will be just like the K-State game on Friday night. The Chiefs on Sunday will be on my big 94.5 Country, the big 94.5 Country. We got a lot of stations, and I'm getting tongue-tied. So let's bail out of that. High school tomorrow night here on 580. High school tomorrow night on 106.9. Wildcats on 94.5. Saturday, Ichabod's on 106.9. Alabama at Wisconsin on 580. Sunday, Chiefs on 94.5. Get it? Got it? Good. There'll be a test later. Anyway, lots of football coming to the airwaves over the next 4 days. Speaking of football, let's get to some 580 Sports Talk headlines here, shall we? We'll start with some NFL news. It was a very highly watched opening weekend of the NFL. In fact, the most watched week one on record, as the league averaged 21 million viewers per game, a 12% increase over last year's TV and digital audience. All told, 123 million people saw at least part of one game. Most watched game was the Thursday night kickoff special, the Chiefs and the Ravens. That averaged 29.2 million viewers on TV and digital. The second largest regular season game for NBC since they got back into NFL football when they acquired the Sunday Night Football package in 2006. Fox's big national broadcast on Sunday afternoon, Tom Brady's first game as Fox's top analyst, Cowboys-Browns, averaged 23.93 million viewers. So huge viewing numbers. The NFL remains the most popular thing in the country. As for week one on the field, the NFL named their AFC and NFC players of the week. This week in the AFC, Houston running back Joe Mixon was the offensive player of the week in the AFC. 178 scrimmage yards led all players, and he had a rushing touchdown in his Texans debut. The AFC defensive player of the week, Buffalo's Greg Rousseau, who had 6 tackles and 3 sacks in a win over Arizona. And the special teams player of the week, Pittsburgh's Chris Boswell, who made 6 field goals, accounting for all of the Steeler points in their 18-10 win over Atlanta. As for the NFC players of the week offensively, the honor goes to Saquon Barkley in his Eagles debut. He scored a league-high 3 touchdowns, totaled 132 scrimmage yards as Philadelphia beat Green Bay.
My quarterback got hurt. Doesn't count.
Fair,
ineligible game. Do not look at the clock when he got hurt.
A fair take. On defense, defensive player of the week, Tyreek Stevenson of the Chicago Bears, who recorded a game-winning interception return for a touchdown in Chicago's 24-17 comeback victory over Tennessee. That is very nearly back-to-back Defensive Player of the Week awards. He was the Defensive Player of the Week in the NFC in Week 17 last year as a rookie. So, arrow pointing up for young Tyreek Stevenson. Jake Moody, the Special Teams Player of the Week in the NFC, led the NFL with 20 points with 6 of 6 from field goal range, including 2 from over 50 yards. Those are your players of the week. That's a little bit of NFL headlines. Brendan, what's your first headline today?
First headline for me, some major news coming from Lawrence today, We've got a new headliner for Late Night in the Fog. That is right. Nelly is no longer the headliner for the event. Instead, it is going to be Lil Jon, who gets the call.
I wasn't expecting that. I thought you'd play a real one rather than try and do your own.
Honestly, it's a lot more fun to do it.
What? Okay.
See, it's worth it. This is already worth it.
Yeah,
I was excited to hear Ride With Me, but being able to do this, it's all the more worth it. You might be asking, no more Nelly. Why? What happened? Well, he got arrested less than a week after it was announced he was going to headline.
He did. It was drug charges?
Yeah, and I think there was something outstanding as well.
Yeah.
In fact, that might have been the charge, but something outstanding. So Lil Jon is indeed replacing him.
Is he going to bring the East Side Boys?
This is so great. From the official KU Athletics press release, Grammy Award-winning producer, DJ, and rapper Lil Jon will now headline. The 5-time Grammy nominee has amassed 8 #1 singles, including Turn Down for What, which earned platinum status from the RIAA and passed 1 billion views on YouTube. His hit single, Yeah, won the Grammy for Best Rap and Sung Performance in 2005.
So, like, a lot of the stuff, like, we know Lil Jon for is just him, like, doing what we were doing, yelling on other people's songs.
What?
Like, his part in Yeah by Usher featuring Ludacris is just the ad-libs.
Yes, like the production of it, great. If you hear da-na-na-na, everybody knows it.
Yes.
Everybody who's alive in 2003 knows that as soon as it's on. But in terms of the actual rapping, yeah, he's just filling. Same with Get Low. Like all the hits, everything you know Lil Jon for, it's just fill for the most part. But no, that's it's going to be exciting. That is set for October 18th by The Buy. And in case you were curious, I'm sure this was already reported, but just so you know, because people always ask, the men's and women's basketball scrimmages are going to be streamed live on ESPN Plus, as well as KUathletics.com and on Facebook Live. So you're going to be able to watch it in a whole number of different ways. Here it is. Here's the most important part of the press release for you, Dan. Last sentence of the first paragraph.
All right.
Additionally, due to extenuating circumstances, Kansas Athletics has announced a new musical act to cap the night.
Yep.
Again, why? What happened? I am a little bummed there's not going to be Nelly.
He's got to bring some guests, right? Like, you can't just do the ad-libs on songs. Like, he's got to bring out some guests.
I once saw...
I don't think the Young Bloods are busy. Like, they come out and do Damn.
I once saw 2 Chainz in concert. It was at a festival. And he actually rapped maybe 2 songs, then just played songs from a laptop and ad-libbed over them for the rest of the show. He legitimately turned around to an Apple computer and said, yo, this is the song of the summer, and played someone else's music. I feel like Lil Jon's going to put on a better show than that.
Yeah, I'll bet he does.
Did you know? I don't think I have his phone number anymore. I've met his son.
No.
He goes by DJ Young Slade. He's not that young anymore. He's my age. So he's DJ 30-something Slade.
Middle-aged Slade.
Yeah, middle-aged Slade at this point. Yeah, I met him at was I in high school still? Yeah. I met him at a high school radio conference in New York City.
How about that?
Yeah, we were in a session about fundraising, and there were just 2 groups. There's my high school and this other school. We had no idea who these people were. And we were like, oh, yeah, we do this once a year fundraiser. Like, we raised a bunch of money. We go to businesses. It's actually a pretty big deal for, fully run by high schoolers. We were like, yeah, we raised like $30,000 a year. It's this whole huge thing. We don't get any money from the school, whatever. We asked, what do you guys do? And they go, oh, well, generally we just either ask the school or ask our parents, and they just buy us whatever we want. I was like, where are you from? They go, oh, Sherman Oaks, California. And then we found out, yeah, my dad is Lil Jon. Said, oh, okay. Sick. Neat. My dad's an engineer.
Paul asks in the YouTube live chat if Lil Jon's act might be screened, if he'll keep it PG for the kids, if they've learned their lesson ultimately from Snoop Dogg and the acrobatic dancers. I can guarantee that there will not be any acrobatic dancers at the Lil Jon show or any other late night at the Fog show in history.
I imagine there is very explicit contractual language at this point to make sure that does not happen again.
They're not going down the acrobatic dancers road again. Like that can't ever happen.
We have a comment here from Vance in the 580 Sports Talk YouTube. I think bringing in Luke Combs or another country singer would be funny as hell. One, Spencer would be front row.
Yeah, Spencer would like jack the credential immediately.
And like, I think that'd be a fun show. Like, he plays some of his more upbeat stuff. Probably be a fun show.
Yeah, you'd have some students in the crowd who'd really dig it.
I do remember when Bill Self, I think it was before Snoop performed. They asked him at a media availability, like, who would you have performing? He goes, well, I know Snoop Dogg, but that's not really my thing. I think like Darius Rucker would be great for this. Coach, I got to be honest with you. Those recruits in the building, they ain't here for old Hootie.
No. They're there for a party, and like there's a kind of party that is, I think, more to the taste of your average high school basketball player.
Yes.
Or college basketball player, for that matter. That Luke Combs isn't the recording artist for. That's all respect due to him as a musician and the fact that he has, I'm sure, many, many fans on that campus.
Yeah.
But many, many more people in that building would like to see a Lil Jon show, I'm thinking. So yeah, that could be a good time. Lil Jon replacing Nelly as the headliner for Late Night at the Fog. Real quick, this story today from Baltimore. Linebacker Kyle Van Noy of the Ravens ripped the Chiefs medical staff for a lack of urgency after he suffered an eye injury, a fractured orbital bone in the third quarter of Thursday night's season opener, calling it unprofessional and unacceptable. He said on his podcast yesterday, why does Kyle Van Noy have a podcast?
Great question.
I was disappointed in the way the training staff of the Chiefs handled the situation. I was supposed to see an ophthalmologist, and they took an entire quarter to get down to talk to me in the locker room, which to me is unacceptable. The Chiefs had no comment on Van Noy's remarks. Van Noy would go on to make a reference to the Chiefs receiving an F grade for their training staff in the most recent NFLPA report card. I understand how Kansas City, the players, have given that training room an F, Van Noy said. My experience, I would probably have given them an F2. All the best to Kyle Van Noy in his recovery. Like, that's half the story. And I'm sure he was frustrated because he probably wanted to get back out and play. But, I mean, maybe there was a reason it took the ophthalmologist that long to get down to the field. Maybe they didn't have one on call. Like, I don't know how that's supposed to work. I just know that sounded like some sour grapes.
Yes.
Big
like
time.
All the other Ravens.
Big time. Yeah. Every Raven going out sad. Let's take a break. We'll come back and wrap things up with the final word. Let's wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Brendan Dworzinski, what you got?
Final word for me today, part one. Yeah. Voice cracked a little bit there. No, secondly, for me, though, awesome to see Seth Lugo be as good as we've seen him all year last night. I mean, we have seen a lot of greatness out of him over the course of the season, but I was not expecting that we would get back to a point where he looked like the best player of all 18 that see the field in a game. I guess technically 20 when you include the DHs. Like he was great. He did something along with two relief pitchers that no one has ever done in the history of playing at the New York Yankees at either iteration of Yankee Stadium. If he is pitching like that, well, I mean, he could lead the Royals to a World Series if you've got an ace pitching like that. But if he's even close to that, 90% of that, you've got so much depth in your starting rotation going into the postseason. Hard not to be confident in darn near every matchup you get against an opposing offense.
And it will be another outstanding pitching matchup tonight. My final word is I'm fascinated to see this one. A couple of outstanding 26-year-olds in Cole Reagan and Luis Gil. Gil has been probably the Yankees' best starting pitcher on balance throughout the year, 13-6, 3.24 ERA.
Oh, definitely.
Reagan's has been super. And over the course of his last 7 starts, when we were worried that maybe he was going to start to peter out, he's posted a 3.23 earned run average with 51 strikeouts in 39 innings. Now, he's still been excellent. He was great his last time out, 6 shutout innings against Minnesota. Would love to see him excel in his first career start against the Yankees. That is the pitching matchup tonight. Again, first pitch 6:05 in the rubber game, the final game of the gauntlet that the Royals have gone through over their last 20 games. On tomorrow's edition of 580 Sports Talk, we'll have a full show. First and foremost, we'll be with you from 3 until 6. We'll recap how the Royals came through that 20-game gauntlet, what it means for the final 15 games of their season. We'll also have plenty of great guests. Rick Peterson from TopSports.News, Paul Meyerberg for the Big 12 Football Breakdown, and the great Mitch Holtis, the voice of the Chiefs, joins us tomorrow as well. So come on back with us tomorrow from 3 to 6. For Brendan, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk.